Hello and welcome to another Every Tuesday tutorial. In this week's video, we are going to be talking about finding or discovering your own unique design style. So this is a question I get asked pretty often if I have any suggestions on how to find your unique design style to kind of set you apart from your competitors or make you stand out in a job interview more. So I want to give you some tips. I've used these same tips for myself. So first things first, step one, you have to learn your basics. Before you do anything else, before you can discover your style, you need to understand the basics of the different design programs. You need to follow tutorials, you need to learn the common tools that are used in the programs. You don't need to know the programs inside and out. That's not what I'm saying at all. Just understand the basic tools, how to use them, experiment on your own. So the reason that this is important is that understanding those tools gives you the freedom to find your own style. You're not hindered by not understanding all the tools completely or even the basics, because if you don't understand the basics, then you can't do what you want to do within the programs, which really contributes to discovering your own style. So once you have the basics down, step two is let yourself be inspired. It's really important to start looking at different types of artwork and seeing what you're most drawn to. What you are inspired by graphically plays a major role in your own personal design aesthetic or your style. So what I suggest is start some boards on Pinterest. When you stand back and look at all of this inspiration that you've collected, kind of look at what things have in common. Do you see a theme here? What are you most drawn to? Do the same thing on Dribbble. Do the same thing on Instagram. Follow people that you really admire. Go to behance.net and start following people there too. The best thing you can do when you're first starting out is just let yourself be inspired. Surround yourself with really good design, and that will help push your design further. So once you have all of this inspiration collected, once your eyes have been around it and really digested all of it, now it's time to really evaluate what do these designers and the artwork you follow have in common, because this is going to be major when you consider your own personal design style and what are you most drawn to aesthetically. So step three, once you kind of narrowed things down, like some examples could be, me personally, I'm drawn to textures, I'm drawn to hand lettering in different typography styles, I'm drawn to flat artwork, modern artwork, really colorful and playful artwork. So I already know that about myself because I've collected so much inspiration over time. So I already know that the things that I'm most drawn to are along the lines of colorful, pretty, cute, modern, textured, and hand lettering, and very type-centric. So find artwork that you could replicate with your current skill set based on those attributes that you've kind of evaluated by looking at all of your inspiration. You want to make sure that the artwork that you believe you can replicate with your current skill set aligns with your aesthetic preferences. Otherwise, this whole exercise will not make any sense. So that's really important. Choose artwork that you believe you can replicate that you actually like. It makes sense, right? So for example, these are some pieces that I was drawn to just based on my personal aesthetic that I really like. I wanted to follow this process so you could kind of see a real example of me following through with this exercise. So these are three that I collected. They look kind of simple, but they're very organized. They've got energy, they're dynamic, they're colorful. The one on the left is more for the type than the color aspect. The middle one is probably most in line with my aesthetic, and then just a more simplistic approach. I really love this logo on the far right, the Library Lovers Art Auction, so I decided to recreate that one, just to keep things very simple and straightforward as an example in this video. What you want to do is then you're going to replicate it. So my suggestion is once you have that example that you want to replicate, look at it and memorize it as best you can in 3 to 5 minutes. If you have enough information, if it's simpler like this one, you can take less time if you want, but the important thing is just memorize as much as you can about it and then put it away. Hide it from your eyes completely and promise yourself you will not look at it again, no matter how tempting it may be. And it will be very tempting to go back and look at it again as you're working to recreate it, but you cannot allow yourself to do it. Otherwise, this whole exercise is pointless. So please do not look at it again until you're done. So you're going to sit at your computer, you're going to recreate it based on everything you can remember, and the parts that you don't remember, you're going to improvise, and you're just going to borrow from whatever is in your mind that can make the outcome as close to what you remember it as, and you're going to finish it off. And when you are confident that you are totally finished replicating it, only then can you compare it to the original. So this is what I did. I actually did this exercise myself. So you can see the original on the left side and my blind replica on the right side. And already you can kind of see some of the differences between the two. I actually stared more at the type and the handle details and kind of the book details more so than the color. So that was something I learned about myself, is that the shape, the forms, and the typography were more important to me than the color when I went into this. So this is actually kind of surprising for me too. And I also learned that I put softer edges on things. You can see all of my angles. They're very rounded in my example. Once you have the two, you want to evaluate the decisions that you made based on similarities and differences, but you mostly want to focus on the differences because those differences are decisions you made when you weren't sure about things. So right here you can see a lot of differences. Another big difference outside of the color is that I changed my tints and my shades of the orange of the books. I didn't leave them as the same color. And those spine details, you can see I didn't leave them as just negative space. I actually recolored many of them, so they alternated as you went through them. And then the handle details are different. The shape is more on the cute side, which is my aesthetic anyway, than the more realistic handle looking side. Once again, all my angles are softer. I've got curved edges. I even added in that shadow detail on the handle. And when you look at what I kept in common, like obviously I remembered I had books, I had a paint handle, and I had typography, but my typography actually matches up pretty well. I paired an all caps sans serif with a basically small caps serif right on top, and I remembered the writing there too. So those are my similarities, but they still look related. So I did a pretty good job remembering what I was doing, but there are definite differences between the two. So what's the point of this whole exercise? The decisions that you make subconsciously, or when you're unsure of the decisions that you should be making when you're trying to remember everything, they play into your personal style and aesthetic because they're digging into your core and what you think would look best in this situation when you're not sure what to do. And when you go back and evaluate, you can start taking notes like, I like softer edges, and when I'm not sure what to do, I put softer edges in. I'm more of a detail person. I'm going to add detail more than I'm going to simplify. All these super minute details, when you combine them all, it really makes sense for a personal aesthetic. So let's push things even further. If you want to take this a step even further to kind of figure out what your style is like, you can think about what would you add to the design if it were your own design. If you came up with this originally and you like how everything looks, but if you wanted to put your own personal spin on things now that you've created it as close as you can to the original, how would you alter it? What would you remove and what would you add? So here's an example. Like, I love hand lettering. I try and integrate hand lettering into most artwork that I create. So I would totally add hand lettering to this because I'm talking about art, and it makes sense for the words art auction to be hand lettered. I love integrating textures whenever I can. Sometimes it's overboard, which I feel like it's a little overboard here, but I wanted to show it anyway. That textures could be there, more shadow details could be added in. I could even add some book shadows. Those lines on the spine could have a little bit of depth to them as if they were stitched in. So there's all kinds of different things that I could add in here that's more reflective of just my personal taste or what I would want to experiment with just to see if I like it better or not. So from here, you want to become more aware of the decisions that you make, the art that you're drawn to, and the similarities within your own work. From this moment forward, you're going to pay more attention to the art that you collect, either on Pinterest, who you follow on Dribbble, on Instagram, on Behance, all of those, and then begin integrating these common details as these details add up, like the rounded edges and the hand lettering and the texture. Start integrating them into your future artwork. And then before you know it, your style is going to start coming to life. You're going to see it right in front of you. This exercise is meant to be an exercise only. It's just to help you establish your style. And I want to hit home the fact that even after you complete this, even if you love what you've created, you cannot claim this as your own. This is based on someone else's work, so you should not be putting it in your portfolio. You should not be claiming it as your own. You should not be showing it in an interview. This is purely a private exercise to begin discovering your personal design style. So I just want to make sure that I mention this. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe. I release a new design or lettering tutorial every single Tuesday, and don't forget to head on over to my blog, every-tuesday.com, for even more design tutorials and a bunch of design freebies. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.